How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. Yourself. Don't just...
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And, well, those of you who know me, folks, and those of you that tune in on a regular basis will know that, unfortunately, this is where my expertise lies in this type of an incident. And, but, you know, it is what it is. My expertise is in unconventional warfare and targeting, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about not just the attack. You've been hearing facts about the attack all day. In fact, we know very little at this point when it comes to the motivation and the actually how the attack was carried out, what weapons were carried out. We're going to do a little speculating on that. But, you know, authorities know a lot more than we do right now, and we're going to get into why they don't share the things that they do or that they could. And is there a need for them to immediately? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and some other things with some good friends tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. So now you see, folks, why I pushed this book so hard. It's interesting timing. I mean, of course, listen, it wouldn't really matter if I did this book last year or if I did it in a year from now. This is the norm. This is the norm, and this is the way things have been, and this is the way things will be in this country and around the globe. Terrorism or attacks or whatever this may be, actually, is because we still don't know if this guy was a madman. We don't know his motivation yet. We've heard, from different. We've seen. I don't know if it was a fake account or not. We saw the Antifa, Melbourne Antifa. I don't even know if it was Melbourne, Australia, or Melbourne, Florida, but the Melbourne Antifa looked like it was a new Twitter account that was put up, and that was Antifa MELB. So that kind of got stuff spun up. I was a little shocked when I saw it. They're saying now it was a fake account. I don't know. What's interesting about this individual, and I'm going to bring this up with Harry Houck here in just a little bit. The interesting thing about this guy, this shooter, is that he just does not fit the MO of somebody who belonged to ISIS. We know that ISIS said they tried to claim that attack as their own. Whether or not it is, we don't know. But this guy definitely doesn't fit the MO or the characteristics of what an ISIS attacker usually is. The age that he is, and the background that he has. There's rumors about that as well that are out there. If it does in fact turn out to be where this guy is associated with ISIS, that's going to be very interesting, because you're going to actually witness a change in the tactics in the way that they do things by the people that they recruit. You know, if this guy is older and he's in his 60s and his background is not, he's never been in trouble ever, and doesn't sound like they know yet at all of any time where he could have been fundamentalized. They call it radicalized. I call it fundamentalized. So interesting. We don't know enough to speculate on that, but those are the rumors that are out there. Now, what he does fit perfectly is the characteristics and the image of what we've seen in leftist shooters. The guy who shot the congressman in Washington, D.C. before the baseball game looked very similar to this individual. Age is older. But we can differentiate that from even more, where in Dallas, a person that said they were Black Lives Matter killed 5 cops, I believe it was. And then in Louisiana, another person that said that they were associated with Black Lives Matter killed cops down there as well. So we're what we are seeing here. We don't know the motivation behind this killer yet. But what we can definitely say in this country is that we have reached a point where, and I've been saying this for a long time, Islam isn't just simply our biggest national security threat. I think our biggest national security threats come from within. Now, if this guy is just a lunatic, some kind of deranged killer who planned this elaborate attack, that's a possibility. I think typically when people go out of their way to plan this much of an attack, there's usually some type of a motivation of hatred or some type of ideological motivation behind the individual that's doing this type of attack. So it's still left to be seen. We're going to talk to Harry Houck here in a minute, CNN contributor, former detective, NYPD retired detective, also former Marine. We're going to talk to him about why the cops don't share as much information as they could. I could talk about this all day, but I think it was interesting to bring in Harry so that we could have this conversation. You could see this is just me and my opinion. These are the facts and why police agencies, in this case, don't share everything immediately. So we'll bring Harry in a second. One of the things, though, that I do want to speculate on my own is that I'm just not clear, and I know a lot of people have questions about this. My buddy Dave Robson, former Marine, is going to come on a little bit later to talk about this with me. I'm puzzled. I'm not going to lie. I'm puzzled because when I hear the recordings of this, it appears to me as though there were multiple firearms going off at the same time. And I don't know how to explain it. I thought last night after hearing it for the first time, potentially, maybe, it was the ricochet of the sound off of the reverberation of the sound off the buildings. But the more I listen to it, the more it sounds like multiple weapons going off. Now, if this individual was shooting by himself multiple guns, the chances are that his effective fire would have greatly decreased. And let's just set the record straight here. 58 killed, 500 wounded. I have been around, and anybody else that's in the military or law enforcement could tell you this, I've been around and even shot fully automatic weapons. If you're not well trained in that weapon, shooting it fully auto, it is hard to hold it on target. It wants to rise. The weapons want to rise and in certain cases turn a certain way. And it's very difficult if you're not trained in that type of shooting. That's why, especially in special forces, typically the only person that is going to go fully auto in an encounter is going to be the point man. When he first encounters whatever it is, he drops down and goes full auto and just sprays rounds ahead of us so that we can then get online and start systematically picking out the targets. And then also the heavy guns, the 240 Gulf or the M60s, those are 7.62 rounds, which I got to tell you, a lot of people that were in the Marine Corps especially and the Army have been saying that, at least from some of the sound, some of the recordings, it sounds a lot like a belt-fed weapon. That's where it's not just a magazine that goes in there. It's a larger caliber weapon like a 7.62 that continues to feed. Now, the only thing that would go against that is the fact that it was the same amount of rounds for every burst that we heard, and that would signify most likely an extended mag or a drum. But even a drum is going to be 100 rounds typically in a drum. And a regular magazine is somewhere between, usually it's around 30 rounds. So I don't know. I've heard different things. I've heard it was a 5.56. I've heard people say it was an AK-47 or an M4, which is a 5.56 millimeter round, or a 7.62 AK-47. I don't know. These are speculations that, look, it's not going to make a difference in the investigation for us to speculate on this. I think it's very curious because it literally, and I'll play these sounds here in a minute, it literally sounds like multiple weapons to me. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you from being in law enforcement that sounds and colors and things like that, for some reason, when you're witnessing it or when you listen to it, those things can be, especially when you're seeing, like you see a car crash and you're passing, you may transpose the colors. You may make mistakes like that as a witness. It happens. But we have these audio recordings and video recordings where you can hear the audio of multiple from multiple different angles, and every single one I hear the same thing. I'm hearing multiple guns. I don't know if law enforcement has. Don't always assume, folks, that law enforcement gets these things. I have faith in Vegas Police Department and the FBI out there, but sometimes they miss stuff. So I don't know. I'm going to ask Harry that. I'm going to ask Dave that. If you feel like one way or the other, you can voice your opinion if you're just outraged by that. But why don't we do this? I'm going to call Harry Houck. And I'm going to put him on the screen here, so stand by. I've got to hook this up real quick. Stand by 1 second here. And let's see here. Let me call this Salty Detective / Marine. There you are, buddy.
I got you.
Right,
I got you, John. How are you?
I'm going to put you up here on the screen. I don't know if you see this at home. You won't see me, but I see you. And because my camera, I've got an angle where the TV is here to my side, and I've pretty much just blacked out the camera that you would see, which is right here. So here's what I was talking about. You may have to turn the sound down just a little bit on there because it's reverberating back here.
My sound? Yeah, okay. Good.
Yeah. So I was just talking a second ago about the sounds that we hear in I just keep thinking that I'm hearing multiple gunshots.
Well, let me tell you what I did, John. I went to one of the YouTube sites that shows when the first volley was let go by the shooter, right. And I slowed the video down. I counted the first volley, and this is somewhat amateurish because, I can only do so much with YouTube.
Right.
I counted over 50 rounds in the first volley. And first volley, I mean 50 automatic rounds. I got it down to like 0.75% less than the amount of the regular time on YouTube, and I counted 50 rounds. I don't think there was two shooters. By slowing that down. And I'm sure since the police department already identified one shooter to everyone, if they had entered that room and found a second shooter there, they probably would have identified that person too, because the fact is that they'd be looking for people that know that person. Right. And they are calling for people to call into the police department with any information on the shooter. So, I think it definitely sounded like one shooter to me. And then there was quite a pause till the next volley. It was quite a few seconds. Whether or not he switched guns and went over to the other window, because there was two separate windows he shot out of. Right. At least that's reported. And maybe he had 8 guns near one window and 8 automatic rifles near the other window, and he went back and forth, back and forth. Of course, we'll find out about an investigation what exactly might have happened.
Let me, I'm going to see if I can put this up here, because I can't do both your feed and this at the same time. But let me put this up next to the microphone and see if we can hear this. And I'll maybe people can pick up on what I'm saying here. So this is, you can hear the music. That was the first volley.
Mm-hmm. That's the one I counted. See how long to the next volley?
Is that, yeah, that's a while. That's either switching guns or moving locations or...
Right.
Hold on. Yeah, so, and that goes over and over again. You hear, but so I think what we're hearing there, Harry, is we're hearing the report of that round, of those rounds, the sound ricocheting off of buildings.
Exactly.
And it gives the appearance of 2 weapons.
Right. Not only that, you're hearing the shot being fired, and then sometimes it strikes the ground, and you're hearing that.
Yeah, which you do in a couple times in there. I heard some ricochets popping over, and then somewhere they're like, that's not a ricochet, but the bullet's traveling over, but also some ricochets you can hear as well. But there's one video where a woman and a man crouch down. He's got a cowboy hat and a beer in his hand, and then when the volley stops, they don't immediately move, but then she says, we got to get out of here. That guy never put his beer down, and his wife had to drag him out of there. And I was shocked, because then I started looking, and I saw multiple people that didn't put their beers down. I saw multiple people standing up to take videos. I saw people running into the gate instead of jumping over. They just ran into it. And then, but more than anything, my biggest pet peeve in all this, everybody just laid down.
Well, you know what? A lot of people aren't aware. Listen, there was, listen, you and I have heard automatic gunfire before.
Right.
All right, so we're aware of hearing that sound. And if I was on the scene and I heard that, I'd know this was not firecrackers. This was not fireworks, because they sound completely different.
Right.
But to somebody who has never heard automatic gunfire, and I've fired automatic gunfire, and, I know what's going on. So how could they actually know what the hell's going on unless they see somebody shot in front of them?
Right.
So like I tell you, those guys, like with the, holding the beers, maybe they heard the noise and people were saying to get down, but probably didn't see anybody being shot in front of them at the time, and maybe didn't even think something was going on. I mean, I don't know, because, it took that crowd. If you sit and you watch that first video where I counted the volleys, a lot of that crowd just stood there and kept on watching the show.
Right,
and,
right.
I'm sure some people who saw maybe some people fall in front of them figured, hey, somebody's getting shot here.
Yeah.
And then the crowd reacted.
Hey, how do you spell your last name?
Houck.
I always spell it wrong. I want to make sure I got it right.
I want people to be looking out for the Houck report on my Harry J. Houck Facebook page. I'll be doing I'm doing a new thing now called the Houck report. So
that's going to be on your Facebook page, you said?
Yes.
Okay. I got to help you out with that, so you can get it also simulcast on Twitter as well, because that makes a big difference. Where
you're the tech expert guy, I call you for all my questions.
I'm the tech guy, but not tech on time. It never fails where something comes up every day when I get ready to start the show. But anyway, so okay, a big question a lot of people are asking is, why doesn't law enforcement give out more information at this point in the investigation? They want to know. Do they know definitively there was one shooter? What weapon was he using? What was his motivation? Have they found out anything at his home? What is the deal with his girlfriend? Which is always the case. They like the Boston bombers. They're saying that the wife didn't know anything. I mean, the Orlando bomber. It's the same. We talked about this on Newsmax earlier. This seems to be a repetitive, I think, mistake by law enforcement to just rule these women out.
Yeah, well, you know what? I just read some. I just saw some new reports before I came on with you. This woman has not been ruled out yet.
Okay.
All right. So those were some of the earlier reports. Because like I spoke before when you and I were on Newsmax, I'm going like, how can you come to that conclusion in less than 24 hours?
Right.
When the shooting's over.
Right.
Or since it occurred. So that was really strange to me. And it's really, I think that law enforcement would make a mistake like that, clear somebody in a couple hours, especially when they're in Japan. Apparently, this woman is in Japan now. Did she? Did he tell us and take a trip this way? You'll be in Japan when this happens, and you won't be culpable. Right. It's a possibility. Yeah. I've known from my experience as a detective, girlfriends know a lot of things. There's a couple times out there when they don't, but she's got to be able to pick up on what his behavior was like. A big thing for me is the fact that when did this guy turn to the point where he wanted to do something like this?
Right. And
the girlfriend's going to be key. If she lives with him or she's close to him, did she notice any change in his behavior within the last year or so to make her indicate that he might do something like this? These are very important questions. So they're probably going to be flying her back. The FBI are going to speak to her. They're going to talk to her, conduct a complete background investigation on her, see if she's got any kind of radical connection that we said on the show earlier. I mean, I'm completely confounded. You know, I don't know what the hell's going on here. You know, it's not the typical thing that you look at as a detective and say, okay, you know, usually in most cases, that investigations I conducted, you kind of know what happened. Mm-hmm. You know, you just got to prove it. All right. And in a situation like this, you know, confounded, you know, why this guy did so. He doesn't fit the typical profile.
Well, you know, in San Ysidro, California, I don't remember what year it was, but it was a long time ago. It's been 20, 30. It's been more than 30 years because it was before I was in San Diego. A guy walked into a McDonald's and shot the whole place up and killed a ton of people. And at one point, I think that was one of the biggest mass murders that we had had in the country. But he told his wife before he went out that he was going to go hunt humans. And she thought he was just being stupid. But the guy had literally lost it. Now, here's the thing, and I write in my book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, that's coming out in December. You can pre-order it now. Awesome. One of the things that I talk about in there is the fact that attackers there's many different motivations and reasons for killing. There's serial killers that they actually target a very small group of people. They're very specific serial killers typically.
Right.
There are mass murderers who let's set this guy to the side, but like the thing I just talked about in San Ysidro, California, that guy had what it could have been even a defensive mechanism in his head where he was paranoid and so went out and killed people. But typically that's sporadic and not very well defined like a serial killer. Ideological killers, however, kind of combine both of those. They often combine a mass killing and they specifically target a group of people. And one thing we can definitely say about last night was that this was, out of all the things they could have shot up in Vegas, this was a very specific group of people at a very specific type of concert.
Right.
Which typically does not have mass shootings and killings. And I think, you know, the worst thing I've ever seen at a country concert was when I was in the FBI, and I was at a Toby, whatever his name is. I forgot the guy's name. Country music singer.
Toby Keith?
Toby Keith, yeah. I stopped liking him when he wouldn't allow people to carry their guns in his restaurant. But he... at his concerts, a lot of drug use, and I saw some people doing cocaine. That turned me off tremendously, and was a terrible thing to see. But that's the worst I've ever seen at a country music concert.
Right. Well, you know, like I said, we don't know what's going through this guy's head right now. You know, like I said, I'm dumbfounded. Mm-hmm. Dumbfounded completely on this. And, you know, we're going to find out sooner or later down the road. You know, they conducted search warrants on this guy's house. They're conducting one right now, I believe, as we're speaking in Reno, another home of his. Hopefully, we're going to be able to find out. Maybe he'll have some kind of manifesto. We find out exactly why he did this. But right now, everybody's, you know, your guess is as good as mine. But ISIS connection, you know, maybe wanting to be a serial killer or the type of killer you just talked about. You know, the problem is with this kind of lunacy. It's very hard to explain, you know, what these people, what's going on inside their mind.
Well, that was the question I asked. We kind of got away from that a little bit. Why does law enforcement not reveal these things? Okay. Like the weapons, for instance. You know, they know what kind of weapons he used.
Right.
Why? I mean, I have my ideas why. I mean, because I was part of that.
This is typical practice.
Yeah.
This is typical. I never spoke to the press at all when I was a detective. I worked some very high-profile cases where the press was knocking on my door. I said, listen, no statement, no comment. Because basically what happened is you don't know, no matter what you say, you don't know where that investigation is going to go, John.
Right.
Okay? So if you say something and you think the investigation is going this way, all right, and you think it's safe to say something, and then all of a sudden, while your investigation is being conducted, it goes this way. And now you say, why the hell did I say that?
Right.
All right. So it's best at first, when you're in law enforcement, not to say anything because it's all about the integrity of the investigation. And not only that, you know, you've got all kinds of different press people out there put their own spin on what you say.
Right.
You know, so you make a statement, and all of a sudden you'll see it on the news and say, you know what, I didn't say that to that guy, and then you get in trouble.
Right.
As a detective. All right, so it's best to leave it up to public information from the police department. Now, what happens is once the police department, comes to the conclusion that they need help from the public, then they will start letting some information out, regarding what happened, so that maybe the public can help them. Right. And once they get dumbfounded to a certain point where they hit a certain point in the investigation, say, listen, we need the help of the public, and that's when they will make the statement. Now here we know it's one shooter, based on what we've seen. All right, this case is basically over as far as the perpetrator is concerned. Perpetrator is dead.
Of who?
Now,
we don't know why.
This is the question.
Yeah.
Why? This is the question right now. So would it actually hurt to give out the other information, that you're talking about? I mean, I don't know, because there still is a possibility that there are people that are involved in this shooting with him.
Right.
So that's why they're keeping their lips shut, and don't want to say anything and say, okay, we're looking for 2 other people. And then those 2 people figure out, geez, they found out about us. Let's get out of Dodge.
Right.
So you keep your mouth shut as an investigator. You don't get in trouble, and you don't jeopardize the integrity of the investigation. That's the only reason why the police do it, because they could wind up putting their foot in their mouth.
And one thing before you came on, I was talking about how interesting it is that, 6 months ago, really a year ago, but even 6 months ago, we wouldn't have included left-wing attackers like we are doing now, because we've had so many of these, and the psyche of the American people has changed. This is something that now we're actually looking at more potential attacks of this nature from domestic, I like to call them homegrown operatives, or, again, I don't like to I like to differentiate between the motive when we get to that point, but these are domestic attackers, and so far they've killed, in the past couple of years, domestic attackers are climbing on the threat level up with ISIS.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something, John. 2 things came into my mind almost immediately when this occurred. The first thing was terrorist attack, by ISIS or somebody connected to ISIS or Al-Qaeda. The FBI came out and said there was no connection. I don't know how they made that determination so quickly, but they said it. So what's the second thing that comes into your mind? We had a shooting where congressmen were shot at in Washington, D.C., and Scalise was seriously injured, correct? So the second thing I thought, was this a politically motivated attack?
Right.
You've got Western people that like country Western music. They tend to be very, very patriotic. And this was the second thing that went through our mind. Is this somebody attacking very patriotic people?
Right.
All right. Now, listen, I'm not saying this is what happened, but as a detective, you got to. It's not that you're making conclusions about the case, but you look at it, and we had a saying, it is what it is.
Yeah, and you also have to look at the different avenues or the different areas where people may be interested in attacking this. And that's just investigations 101, what I don't like, though, was, when I was on CNN, there was one person in particular, I'm not going to say his name or anything, but came on there and said that about the San Bernardino attack, that this is most likely a militia, a right-wing militia. And I was like, and I said it, which is probably why I didn't last as long as you have. I was like, I don't get where do you have the information to make that statement? Because there's nothing here that's showing it's a militia. And I think in this case right here, the difference between that is, if he would have stated that there's a potential it could be militia, there's a potential it could be Islam,
right.
Okay, I get it, although I still don't understand where he came up with the militia thing. But in this case, you definitely, if you look at a country music concert and there's an attack where that many people are killed, you can definitely say, who are the top threats to a country music concert where they kill 58 people?
And that's what you do as a cop.
Yes.
That's what you do as a cop. You go through those threats and say, what most likely occurred here? ISIS, political attack, and what's next? Lunatic?
Right.
You know, listen, you know, when he said possible right-winger or whatever kind of militia attacker, you know, you got to think of the possibility.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go by the you know, you're conducting an investigation. You're following what I like to call the yellow brick road. All right, that's the evidence.
Yeah.
You follow the yellow brick road wherever the evidence takes you. All right, but still, you got, like when I work on a homicide case or something like that, you know, when I respond to a homicide, okay, this is drug-related homicide. You can just tell by looking at it. You know what I mean? And, you know, and then, although you didn't just keep that in your mind because you took, you know, you took the evidence and you put it in your head and said, okay, then maybe it's sending me this way instead of that way. Right. So, you know, you've got to make some kind of decision in your head as a detective or investigator what it might be. All right, based on everything you're seeing and based on your experience in conducting, you know, 1,000 investigations. And then if the evidence takes you somewhere else, that's fine. All right, but most of, you know, a lot of times as a detective or an investigator, 90% because of your experience.
Well, I lost that. We lost you there for the last part. What was that last part?
Oh, so usually as a detective, if you've been doing this a long time, like I was, you know, you can come in, you can come to a, I don't like to use the word conclusion.
Yeah.
But you can pretty much know where the investigation's going.
Right. Well, yeah, once it gets to a certain point, but you still let the evidence lead you.
Exactly.
One of the
You don't let that thought take over your brain and say, okay, I'm focusing on this one thing and then screw everything else.
Right.
You know, you follow the evidence as always.
Yeah, I got one of the best things I did when I was in the FBI here in New York City is I went through your 2-week the NYPD homicide course.
Yeah, good course.
And I learned a tremendous amount about investigating and how you can taint an investigation, whether it be through touching stuff or tarnishing the scene by walking, but also allowing your mind to say, oh, well, that person definitely did this and this was their motivation when you're making assumptions.
Yes, I've seen that 100 times. You know, I've seen it many times where guys go in the wrong direction investigation because they think this is what happened. And, you know, it was the wrong guess.
Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, and I'll let you go here in just a second. But, you know, when you were investigator and or detective, a lot has changed since then. You know, social media is so huge. Cameras, everybody's got them. And this country for the past 16 years has been through a terrorist attack, another terrorist attack, war, you know, crazies doing stuff. Politics have gotten out of control. So people are awake. They've had the wool taken off over their eyes. Do you find it as amazing as I do at how the American people, when something like this happens, actually do a pretty good job of putting a picture together of who this potentially could be and what the motivation is as compared to 30 years ago?
Yeah, you know why? Because, you know, TV covers it a lot more than it did 30 years ago. We've got the internet. We got shows like yours. Yep. Where people can actually sit and talk and learn. You got a lot of cop shows out there, believe it or not. You can learn a lot from a cop show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, a lot of them are based on you know, real life cases.
Yeah.
Although I can't watch them, but you know, so a lot of people can learn from this, and they can come to some kind of conclusion or determination on, you know, what might have occurred. Right. People are a lot smarter, you know, regarding, you know, law enforcement and investigations now because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way about a lot of cop shows and military and stuff. It's difficult for me to watch those things, but yeah. I always tell everybody the most realistic cop show that was ever on TV was Reno 911, because the majority of the time they're just clowning around. I think it was Barney Miller. Yeah, that too. Yeah, they definitely got the look of a New York City precinct down. Oh yeah, perfectly in that show.
And when they filmed that show NYPD Blue, that was based on my detective squad, the 9th and East Village, and they filmed in our precinct every day.
Now, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but tell everybody about the East Village, what it was, what it became, and how the NYPD got it to where people actually live and walk around at night.
I'll tell you what, the 80s and the 90s and the 9th were It was a combat
The
zone.
9th is the lower east side.
That's right. It's on the east, on East 5th Street between Broadway and between 1st and 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's also part of what was called Alphabet City, which Avenue A, B, C, and D, which was an even worse combat zone than the rest of it. It had one of the highest homicide rates. We had 16 detectives just doing robberies. Now, when I talk about, and I was one of the 16 detectives doing robbery, I spent 4 years in robbery there. We had 1,000 in a square mile every year. I'm talking 1,000 robberies where somebody would stick a gun in your face or, threaten you with some type of harm to take your wallet.
Right.
I mean, that was astronomical. And then what happened is Giuliani came in and changed a lot of things. And, when I first became a cop in 1982, I worked up in Harlem and we weren't allowed to make drug arrests.
Really?
You made it? Right. You weren't allowed to make drug arrests. If you got caught making a drug arrest and came in, you'd be walking the Brooklyn Bridge beat the next night.
Why was that?
They left that to narcotics because of the Knapp Commission and the corruption back in the 60s.
Yeah.
They were scared to death about cops getting involved in narcotics. And what would happen is, I remember standing on Lenox Avenue on 116th Street where they put us out there as rookies standing on the corners and they'd be dealing drugs behind our back. And even when I was on patrol up there in Harlem in the 2-6, they'd be dealing right on the corner and we weren't allowed to do nothing.
Wow.
It was just narcotics. And then what happened was, Bratton came in, Giuliani came in, and Bratton goes, you see a crime being committed, you act as a police officer. And boy, did things change.
Yeah. Yeah. And they also put people back on the beat, down to the Lower East Side, for instance, and cleaned up a lot of stuff. Let me get back real quick to this, shooting in Vegas, because I was wanting to ask you this on Newsmax earlier, and I'm going to ask Dave Robson this here in a little bit, but what tactics do you see that law enforcement could improve upon to stop or to mitigate these things? Because I feel there's technology that the military has. They have the one, the shot finder, where if a shot goes off, it triangulates where it's at. They have that. And then for outdoor events like this, why not have counter snipers set up on the top of buildings so that they can get in case this happens?
Here, I can tell you one thing about law enforcement. Listen, these are all great ideas, and I'm for them 100%. But it's all who's going to pay for it.
Right.
That's always the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that attack in Pakistan where they hit that hotel and killed all those people? Right. This is quite a few years ago.
Yep.
I found out from
you just described at least 100 attacks in Pakistan. But yeah, go ahead.
I know exactly, right? But listen, you know what the hotels did? Nothing.
Yeah.
They thought, well, the chance of this happening again in one of our hotels are slim to nothing. I had my consulting company around that time, and I went and conducted some surveys in some hotels, and then told them how much it would cost to change things, and go like, we're not really going to spend that kind of money. It's all about money. Listen. What are they going to do? Are you going to hire snipers off duty to stand on the roofs to watch the buildings, adjacent to where there's a concert? Is that a good idea? Yeah, it's a good idea, but who's going to pay for it? This is what law enforcement's always about. It's always about who's going to pay for it. You hear it's a little off topic here, but what's going on in Chicago and all these other inner cities. These administrations will not give police any money to do their job. They're on a very tight shoestring and need probably their budgets doubled.
Right.
At least to be able to protect the people in the cities that they're, assigned to work at. But it's all about money. It's all about money, John.
Yeah. Unfortunately, money and politics, which you've seen in Puerto Rico, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Money and politics. My drill instructor used to say, sex and money make the world go around. That's John Crouch. But now it's really money and politics are destroying anything effective in this country.
Because politics, the left is injecting politics into everything.
Yeah.
Everything from whoever thought politics would be involved in the NFL, for Christ's sakes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, the communist that subverted it, and Roger Goodell, who I think is a communist as well. Anyway.
I'm not a big fan of his either.
Yeah, me either. Anyway, listen, brother, thank you very much. And again, anything I can help with, don't hesitate to ask. But it's the Houck Report. When is that going to be on your Facebook page?
Well, I have one on there already, and hopefully I'll be doing another one within the next day or two.
Okay.
On my fight, that's my business page, not my personal page.
Which is
the Harry J. Houck.
Harry J. Houck, and you see how
America's detective.
And you see how he spells his name right there, Houck. All right, my friend. Good luck. We'll see you. I'm sure we'll see you on TV, and we'll have you back on here anytime you want.
Doing a good job, man. Take care, brother.
Thank you, my friend. God bless. I salute you.
You too, man. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. There you go. One incredible guy. Let me pull this down here. Boom. And listen, I want to offer this out. Anybody who was there last night, if you were there and you experienced this and you want to talk about it, well, you can reach out to me on Skype right now. You can add me. It's the Experts Show on Skype, and you'll see a picture of my mug up there. Let me see here if I can pull this up real quick. Yeah, you'll see my mug. It looks like this. The Experts Show, and just add me, and then I will. I'll let you call in if you want to call in. I'd love to hear what you saw and what you experienced. If you want to do that, so I'll leave this open. I'm gonna call up Dave Robson right now, and talk just a little bit more about what we saw. In these videos, and get Dave's perspective on how you should react. And then I'm going to talk for a second about Puerto Rico, and then a little bit about my book, and then we'll call it a night. Okay. So, and again, forgive me. I do the commercial for my book in between each segment. That way people see it, because a lot of people tune in and they tune out. So forgive me if you're seeing this for the umpteenth time. This is the best way I know how to get this out to people. So let's go ahead and let's see, where are we here? There it is. And let's go to the A block. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, I'm going to call Dave Robson up here. If I can find him for some reason. There he is. Let's see if he answers. Dave Robson. Let's see here. Stand by, folks. Calling Dave Robson. If I look tired, it's because I literally have not slept in 2 days. Right when I was getting ready to go to sleep last night, I got a call. Are you there? You there, buddy? There he is. There he is. All right. Oh, my Lord, that beard got even bigger. All right, stand by. Let me put you over here. Boom. There he is. You look even more crazy.
Hunting season, it keeps warm, and I keep, snacks in there.
Especially because the shadow is making it look like ZZ Top long. It looks like it's all the way down here, but it's actually, I guess, right here. So,
well, that's a goal in the long run.
So, when you first watched this, did you get the feeling that there was more than one shooter like I did?
I thought that there might be, just when they was talking about how, how many casualties there were.
Yeah.
But once you start hearing the rate of fire coming out there, I can see one person doing that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When you've got that many people, and that you ever been to concerts? I'm sure you have. Just how condensed everybody is in a small space, and with an automatic weapon, you don't have to be a great marksman there. He'll have to know how to operate it.
Yeah.
And sounds of things, I would say that from the just the number of weapons that he had, and I'm sure that he had plenty of range time with it to get familiar with it. It sounds like he planned this out, so I'm sure he at least, put a few rounds down range just in preparation for this. It's just like he did planning out his room and who he was going to do and everywhere else.
Now, is there anything that specifically about this, like, for instance, here, let me ask you about this. You've been around a lot, 240 Golf, M60s, M4s, which is a 5.56, and an AK-47, which is 7.62. Did that sound like any specific weapon to you? I mean, the cycle of it was very interesting because it just didn't sound like.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't sound like as any any kind of belt fit or anything like that.
Yeah,
it was. Odds are, I have no evidence to base it off, but just from the sounds of things, I would say that it was likely something that had been modified just to fire quicker.
Yeah. It's funny because I talked to some other Marines today, and they were saying that sounded exactly to them like a 240 Golf. But then I talked to somebody else, and they said, "No, that sounds like an AR-15." So
yeah, I would think it would sound a little more like a saw than a 240. I mean,
yeah.
240's got that whoop whoop whoop, But I don't know. It's kind of hard to pick up just because it's all cell phone video too.
Yeah,
and I'd say that the sound is probably distorted a little bit just for the lay of the buildings. I'm sure you get a strange echo out of it, and then you have the microphones and the PA system on just from the singing and everything else. So I'm sure that's picking it up, and then it's putting that sound out too.
Right. Now, for those of you that don't know, Dave is a former Marine. He's he's my West Virginia reporter, and I was talking to the guy who was head of Mike Brown, who was head of DHS under the Bush administration, I believe, for a while, and we were talking about the similarities between disasters like hurricane disasters and finding yourself in a situation like this. If you are prepared even the least little bit in your mind to deal with this stuff, it is exponentially beneficial for you in these circumstances when you're caught up in it.
Right.
I mean, you've been both. You've been trained as a warrior, but you've also been caught up in a circumstance there when they had the floods in West Virginia.
Oh yeah. It's just anything. You have to prepare for the worst. I don't know. I think it's really hard for people to just wrap their minds about preparing for something like that in Vegas. But I think you still need to just take it into account, at least what you would do if something like that would happen.
Right.
And, or even while it's going on, just take some cover and then look for a place to run too. It's kind of old military thing, that I'm up, they see me, I'm down.
Right.
So it's running from one covered position to another, looking to where you're going to go to.
Which we rarely even talk about that on here or any other show is, how do you run? How are you supposed to run if you're going to run away from somebody who's shooting? In a direct line? Do you just pick the easiest way out? Do you run diagonally? Do you run point to point?
Yeah. Well, when you can, you just, like I said, you take one position to cover, and while you're there, you try to safely as you can seek out another position of cover, and pick your time to get there and get there quickly.
Right. What just hypothetically, if you were in a situation like that last night, how do you think you would have reacted, and would you have put your beer down? I'm kind of making fun of this, but at the same time, it just shows how people's minds panic and they don't realize that they're doing stuff like that. Like I saw a guy here, I actually write about this in the book, a guy in my building got in an argument with somebody. They chased him inside the building, and he was screaming, call the police, call the police. And I looked at the guy, and I was like, you have a phone in your hand. Why don't you call 911? And I couldn't figure out if he just forgot that he had a phone in his hand, or if it was because he didn't want to be involved with the cops coming.
I don't know, maybe just concentrating too hard on putting one foot in front of the other, don't want to look down to push those buttons. But I don't know, it takes a lot of training, I think, to get your mind prepared just for that, I think that for just on a layman's level there is just get out of there. And like I say, just look for cover. They have no way of returning fire. And I'd say probably the big agenda now is making it harder for everyone to return fire. 'Cause I'm sure they're going to try to pass more gun laws off of this. And blame that opposed to the nut.
They fired the one idiot from CBS who was an executive. I don't remember exactly what she said. Something about how she didn't feel sorry at all for the country.
Or most country music fans
because we supported Trump.
Which I think everybody probably knows that, and that's the angle everybody's looking at is probably what the shooter's motivations were.
Right, yeah. Hey, listen, I'm going to let you go, and because I got to wrap this up. I literally, and this is the second time I've done this show where while I'm talking, if you pause too long, I'm like this. I didn't even sleep.
Day already, probably.
Oh my Lord! I was about to go to sleep last night. I got a call from a show that didn't even end up booking me. Thank you, Fox Business. And so I couldn't go back to sleep then.
Solid.
And then I did interview after interview after interview today on all the radio shows, and then hosted on Newsmax, and then did 2 more interviews when I came home. So it's been definitely a long day, but important for all the American people to hear this.
Yes, sir.
All right. A man, a few words. All right. Listen, do yourself a favor. Go out and get yourself a small wrench so you don't have to pinch your hands anymore when you're opening up your deer stand. I know, and I've tried to teach you that, you cannot open with a Gerber tool because you will pinch your hands.
Oh, no. Yeah, you found out just like I did, huh?
Oh, yeah, I did. All right, buddy. Thank you very much. I salute you. God bless.
Later.
Talk to you soon. All right, folks, another good buddy of mine, Dave Robson, former Marine and all-around great American. It's great to hear these guys talk about from the perspective of somebody who's been in and around weapons firing and how they, what it sounded like to them and how they would react to this stuff. Let's do this. Let's go. I don't want to go too much longer on this, so let's go to the B block. I'm going to talk about my book for a second, and not because I'm going to plug it, because I'm going to actually teach you some stuff out of this. And then I'll talk about Puerto Rico real shortly, and then we'll go close it out to the Truth Zone. Don't go away. If you're watching the show right now, stay tuned. And remember, you can order the book. There it is right here. You can order the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's called Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Sean Hannity wrote the foreword. Marcus Luttrell, amongst other SEALs and people in law enforcement and media, endorsed the book. And it's going to be a great benefit to you in teaching your children, your families. It'll be a great learning experience for them to read it and divide their lives up into sectors so that they can plan for things to happen just like this. Which, why don't we go to the B block and I'll explain some of this. I'll even pull up a little bit of the book and kind of read it to you. I'm still waiting. I haven't seen anybody add me that might have been there today or last night, and I really would like to. I'd like to know if anybody of my viewers were there, or if you're tuning in for the first time, if you were there and you saw what happened, let me know. So let's go to the B block. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right. So I guess I could take Dave Robinson's name off there. Boom. So about the book, one of the things that I talk about in this book are the types of attacks, what killing is all about. But I want to share with you a story. I'm not going to go into great detail because I don't want to ruin the story for you when you read the book. But there was as a child, when I was hanging out with my sister and her friend, and they wanted to, I was 9 or 10 years old at the time, and her friend was going to spend the night. My sister was a little bit older than I was. And we went over to her sister's house so she could get some clothes. Now, we grew up in Yeovil, Arkansas. Hadn't been a murder or a house broken into in my lifetime at that point, and I don't know what crimes were on the record there, but it wasn't much. So we go into the house, and my sister, in her eternal sense of humor, says, she whispers out loud and says, "Let's go for the gold first." So we go upstairs. I didn't even think anything about it. We go upstairs. At the top of the steps, I'm sitting there, and there is a couch at the top of the stairs. So I sat down and waited on them to go in the room and get their clothes. And I'm just sitting there. I'm 9 years old. I don't have a care in the world except for, maybe I was hungry or whatever. And all of a sudden I look up, and there's a barrel of, it was either a .357 or I don't remember exactly what the caliber of the gun was, but I think it was a .357 revolver, was pointed right at me. Now, I can still remember looking so closely at that weapon that I could see the grooves in the barrel and I could see the rounds in the revolver. And I distinctly remember that I could barely breathe, that I could not scream for help, and I couldn't talk. All I did was start crying, and I was frozen. Now, in comparison to that, so I want everybody to know that I have experienced the fear, that I am not criticizing the people that are involved in these incidents, but I'm making it known that this crippling fear exists. It's often what gets people killed. In the case of Orlando, in the case of Columbine, in the case of last night, where people are emotionally frozen from terror, that they lay down on the ground and think that somehow getting as flat as possible or crouching down like you're hiding is going to keep you from being shot. It doesn't work. But I do understand and identify with the fear that people feel when they're put in these circumstances. As a 9-year-old child, as I stared at that gun, I was absolutely terrified, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act. It's important for you to realize that fear can be mitigated, and you can actually improve your ability to handle that fear. Years later, having gone through police training and Camp Robinson, Arkansas, where I was a cop for a while, going through SEAL training and being at SEAL Team 4, operating in and out of Central South America, Air Marshal training with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy in where was it? Artesia, New Mexico, and then later on the FBI Academy. I learned a tremendous amount about carrying a weapon, employing a weapon. One of the things that on the first day of the FBI Academy, our instructor, who I love very much, is a great man, said, I didn't know him at that point, but he says, while you're here for the next 18 weeks, because that's how long it was when I went through the FBI Academy, he said, you will fire 3,000 rounds through your service weapon. And everybody around me was like, wow, 3,000 rounds, that's a lot. And I looked at the person next to me, I said, I used to shoot 3,000 rounds every day when I was at John Shaw's shooting school with the SEAL teams, and we did that for a month. 3,000 rounds every day for a month with no days off. So that's the level that the SEALs and other special forces groups like that are trained. So when you compare that to the 9-year-old child that I was and the fear that I had to deal with then, when I've had to pull my weapon, and I've done it a couple times, on an American citizen or a threat, whether or not one of these guys was an American citizen, I don't know, but and and I tell this story in much greater detail in the book. There was a point where I had to pull my weapon on somebody because they had, I watched them tackle a guy, and one guy had a screwdriver about that long, which I did not see, and the other guy had a gun, which I thought I saw. So as they chased the individual over and jumped on him, and they're beating him with these things, I drive over there in my mighty Ford minivan, undercover minivan, and I didn't even have time to hit my lights. I barely had time to call on the radio. I jump out of the van, draw down on him, grab one guy, the guy that I thought did not have a gun. I grabbed him by the back of the neck, so I've got him holding him down while I've got my .45 caliber Glock just literally 12 inches away from this guy's head. Now, the training that I've been through, I'm looking at hands. I'm not looking at eyes. I'm looking at his hands. The guy's not going to kill me with his eyes. If he's going to kill me, it's going to be with those hands and whatever those hands may actually employ. So I'm holding this guy down, and then I'm holding my weapon on the other individual. And as he brings his hands up, luckily for him, his shirt comes up, and I didn't see a weapon presented. I didn't see a weapon in his hands. I didn't see any sense of gunmetal in his waistband. Had I saw the least bit of gunmetal in that individual's belt, I would have shot and killed him. Had I saw anything in the individual's hands that resembled a gun, I would have shot him and killed him. And I would have had a justifiable reason to do so, because action beats reaction. If he has a weapon in his hand, even if he's going to go like this with it and say, I'm going to drop the weapon, I'm not taking that chance. If he's stupid enough to employ that weapon to beat somebody with it, which is a violent felony, and then stand up with it in front of a guy who's holding a .45 caliber Glock in his face, and he's willing to stand up with that gun, I would have shot him, because I'm not going to take the chance on him doing that. That is fast. But me holding on him and identifying a weapon and eliminating him as a threat is faster. My action would have beat his action simply because of this. That 9-year-old child that I was when I had that weapon pulled in my face had no training, had not ever thought about having a gun pulled in his face. That 9-year-old boy was frozen with fear. But from that point forward to that night when I pulled my weapon on that individual, I had had literally years of training, years of experience in stressful situations, years of experience in putting myself into this environment and thinking my way through it. And I knew, because of my training and experience, I would not hesitate to shoot and kill this individual, because my training had taught me the exact steps I needed to take in order to have a good shoot. And I was confident in that because I rehearsed that every time I went out. These are the standards that I have to meet in order to use deadly force. Now, I'm not going to go into what happened. You'll have to read the book to get the outcome of that. But here's what I want you to take away from this tonight. You have to be ready for these circumstances. I don't expect you to scale the building and take the guy out, or run back to your truck, pull out your 50 cal sniper rifle and shoot the guy up in the window. I'm not talking about that. But you do need to be able, and you need to be willing to do this before you get there, maybe days before, hours before, to be able to look at where an attack can happen, when that could happen, the vulnerabilities that could be exploited in order to attack you, and then the attacker's avenue of approach. Where could they come from? What direction? Envision those things in your mind like a swimmer, like an Olympic swimmer, and sits down and then goes through the entire race in their head. Golfers do that sometimes. They go through the entire game on that specific course in their mind before they ever play it. And then when they get out there to play it, they're smooth because they've already done it in their mind. So that is the premise behind this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. But it's not something that you do need to get the book because it's going to help you structure how you do this. But you can start this right now. You will improve it when you get the book in December. Pre-order it now, get it in December. But you can start now. Ask yourself, whatever point of your life, whether it's your commute to work, your commute home, whether it's when you go out at night, if you're going to a special event, church, you're going to go to the mall, you just simply take a step back, take a breath, and say, okay, if I was going to attack, where would I attack this mall? Where would be the biggest bang for my buck? What time would be the biggest bang for my buck? Is it fluctuate throughout the day? Or is it set specific for these periods of time? Is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Or is it 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday? Ask yourself that. That's what the food court is like a lot of the times. Let's look at the Ariana Grande concert or the Boston bombing, where the end of the event, not the event itself, but the end of the event is where the attacks happened. If you envision these things, you actually can either avoid the attacks altogether or mitigate the circumstances that you find yourself in that will lead to an attack. That's what this book is all about. That's why you should pre-order it. And when you get it, trust me, you'll be able to see these things a lot clearer. Anybody has any questions on that, you can reach out to me on Twitter and on Facebook. Either direct message me or just send me a tweet or something, and I'll try to get back with it. Now, really wanted to have somebody that was there to speak, but I'm not getting any takes on that. So why don't we do this? Well, let me just say this about Puerto Rico. It's a pretty cut and dry, okay? Something's going on down in Puerto Rico, and it has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with a mayor that has not attended the Joint Operations Command. She has not been sitting in there, which she should be doing. A mayor's position is in the command post. Then they can actually task organize others to do to actually do on-site command of what needs to be done by carrying out the mayor's orders, because she's basing what she thinks is best off of the information that's coming in to the Joint Operations Command. If she's not in there, she's blowing it. There could literally be people dying because she doesn't have the information to make the right decisions on the ground. Very frustrating when I see this, and I'm surprised at the amount of people who are still alive that haven't died in Puerto Rico. I'm very surprised by that, and she's very lucky. Now, the other thing that I have a problem with, unions in this country serve a purpose. I'm not going to say that they're bad. They serve a purpose, but I think unions have gone far beyond their initial purpose. Now they, like the Twinkie factory, put people out of work. In the case down in Puerto Rico, they are blocking non-union truck drivers from coming in and working. That is unbelievable. It's unacceptable. And if you call yourself an American, I don't care if you live in Puerto Rico or not, if you are keeping supplies from getting out to people, you have no reason to open your mouth and complain about anything. And quite frankly, I think it's criminal. I think you should be in jail. So I think these union people, where their unions do serve a purpose, when they're doing things like blocking the food and water and medicine to getting to the people because they don't want non-union people doing it and not enough union people showing up, and they block that, they should go to jail, is what I believe. All right, so let me know what you think. I will go get some sleep here in a while. Anybody got anything else? No. Yes, no. I haven't looked if there's any trolls on here tonight. I quite frankly don't care. I'm going to be out like a light so fast after I walk Rico that a meteor could hit me and I wouldn't know it tonight. Well, if a meteor hit me, I'm probably not going to know anyway. Anyway, let's go to the Truth Zone. And we'll get out of here. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. So, folks, you know, we all deal with things every day. These poor people yesterday, as I talked about earlier, and I think I said it earlier, I definitely said it on the radio today and on Newsmax. A friend of a friend's wife was killed last night, and he tragically held her in his arms while she died. You never know when this stuff is going to happen. It could be at an airport, it could be at a concert, it could be at a country music concert or a rap concert. It could be at any of these concerts. You need to be prepared. You need to forward think these things. You can't pass this off on someone else. That's not what personal responsibility is about. That's not what awareness is. Awareness is not handing off your protection to other people. Law enforcement may or may not be there, as we see here. You hold the key to your protection by simply reevaluating the sectors of your life and trying to understand your critical areas, the critical times for those areas, the vulnerabilities that you have that can be exploited in order to attack you, and the avenue of approach that an attacker may take. Now, the avenue of approach may be a building where they're shooting down at you, or the avenue of approach may be a small unit that's actually moving into your location. It differs. But what doesn't differ is information collection. Information collection, by and large, is done by using close-in type of tactics, techniques, and procedures. And then far away, you have your surveillance, you have your car surveillance, foot surveillance, you have electronic surveillance, you have Title IIIs where you're listening to people's conversations. The fact is, investigations and information collection can be done by you on yourself. And that is what you need to start doing. You need to start looking at your life. Where do you normally go to for concerts? Is there traffic patterns that show on the cement where most people walk? Avoid those areas. You know that there's going to be people there. You know that the chances, if there is an attack, it could happen there. Avoid it. Try to find an alternate gate to go to so that you can go in and out of the same locations and be safe. You see, folks, being alive doesn't mean that you have to be scared. But it does mean that you need to be safe. And that's the important thing here, is that you remain safe because you remain aware. And if you can avoid an attack, avoid it. But if you do want to go to a concert or to church or the mall or any other location, you have the power within you to look and say, that's where I would attack from, and this is how I would do it. And then you just avoid it. Or you know in your mind, when bullets start flying, that's not a firecracker. I've never heard a firecracker that goes pow, 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 pow. It sounds like a machine. I've never heard that. But if you experience it, if you go out and experience it, and you think about it, you will be ready to act. And remember, action always beats reaction. But the only way you can get action is if you plan for it. My good buddy Rico is down there asleep. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. on this same show. This is The Experts. I'm Jonathan Gillum. The truth has arrived. Don't forget to go to the GoFundMe page. You see it right down there at the bottom. GoFund.me/The Experts Roadshow. If you donate $50 or more, you're going to get a signed copy of the book. We just got to figure out how to get it to you, but you'll get it. GoFund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Help me make this show as best as it possibly can. Tell everybody about it. Share the word, folks. Share the word. Truth has arrived. Unity has arrived. Dialogue has arrived. And the citizenry is now powerful again. I'll see you tomorrow on The Experts. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.